Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of the Heavy Metallurgy Album Club. I've got three awesome co-hosts tonight. TJ is off for the evening. He'll hopefully be back next week. So cheers, TJ. Thankfully, Melanie from Melanie Loves Death Metal decided to step in, fill in for the man. And I couldn't think of a better person than her for this record. I mean, anyway, but everybody, it's good to see you. Jim, hello. How are you?
Doing good, man. Had a safe return back from the wilds of northern Michigan, hanging with you. It was definitely culture shock coming from the low 70s back into the high 90s. So that took an adjustment, but yeah, that's good to be back. Though I do miss you guys already. That was a great visit.
We had a good time. Good to see you and your family as always, for sure. Kellen, how are you?
You know, I spilled gravy on myself. I'm warring with the raccoons that are mating outside my front lawn. And, you know, the same old thing here. It's over at KFC Central. What can I say?
Representing the Tej. All right, on. Melanie, how are you? Thanks again for joining us.
Good. Melting in Florida, you know, surviving the swamp. Not a whole lot.
Yeah. Well, it's good to see all you guys. It's always fun. These shows are always fun. And Jim picked a monster of a record. But before we get into that, let's maybe go around the horn here and show off maybe a title we've been spending a little time with this week. We'll start with you, Melanie, if I can get this figured out here. There we go.
So I finally caved and got the new Hypocrisy reissues from Nuclear Blast. And I've just been playing the hell out of them ever since I got them last week. And this is my favorite Hypocrisy album. I know I'm in the minority, so.
Oh, it's a good transitional record, but I like it. It's good.
Yeah. So just having a lot of fun with these. I've never owned any of them on vinyl. I've always just had them on CD. I wasn't going to buy them, and then I saw them available, and I was like, you know what? I'll just snag them. Can't go wrong with some of my favorite albums to ever come out. So, yeah, they're awesome. They sound good. The image quality is a little bit garbage on them, but whatever. They sound good. That's all that matters.
That's kind of a typical thing. They probably just pull the CD art and blow it up.
Yep, that's exactly what they did.
Yeah. All right, Jim, what have you been spinning?
Well, you know, I think it's probably appropriate. It's, you know, a band that gets mentioned a lot here on our show. Doing some old classic here, Pestilence, Consuming Impulse. You know, recognizable to everyone who is on and watches this show. Yeah, you know, it's like I took some time I was really focusing on, you know, the riffs and you know, trying to hear, you know, the bass, you know, Martin's bass is kind of a little drowned out here in the mix, but you know, it's still cool when you can make it out. And man, it's just a great record, man. It's just cool. And of course his voice is spectacular on this. So
the voice that launched a million copycats, especially in the new OSDM movement.
Yeah, it did it like those horrendous guys, you know, God bless them, but every time I hear them I think of Martin. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. All right, Kellen, what have you been spinning?
Is it fall already?
It's getting there. The leaves are starting to change up here a bit.
Okay, because today it was in the 70s and it felt like I cannot wait for the summer to be over. I'm not a summer person.
Me either. I hate it.
By sheer force of will, I brought out one of my favorite fall bands. This is Evoken's Atramor.
Nice.
And I'm trying to push the heat away. Can I please have my fall? Yeah, I'm grabbing all the Evoken records and letting those spin.
So Death Doom is more of a summer or a fall time jam for you, huh?
Oh, absolutely. Especially, I mean, they lean towards the funeral on the Death Doom side for me. So
love that record, man. It's one of my all-time favorite.
Yeah, that's one of
Doom Death records.
I love Evoken so much.
Yeah.
All right.
What about you, Marty? What are you spinning?
you know what? This album got a ton of hype when it came out. Finally ended up getting a copy. Undergang's Eldrig I Live It. It's okay. It's okay.
Oh, come on now.
The
It's
shit
better
before
than
it,
okay.
the albums before this are way better. This is just kind of
Yeah.
boring. A lot of just
Misanthropology.
It's just
It's really good.
it's just kind of, it's okay. The vocals are sick. It's just at this point it's so played out. There's so many bands that sound like this. It's kind of tough to differentiate for me, but this is okay. It's okay. Do I love it? No. I see why people like it, but I think albums that came before it were much better. I'm still not 100% wrapped around this one yet. Not that it's anything new or unusual. That's the problem. It's just kind of another band that sounds like this. Anyway, so yeah, we are here today to talk about this monster of an album, Obscene Majesty by Devourment, the band's fifth full-length album. Fifth. I'm going to say fifth. A little bit of history about the band. Devourment was formed in 1995 following the breakup of Dallas death metal band Necrocide. Whoops, I'm in the wrong one. Never mind. Devourment is an American death metal band from Dallas, Texas, formed in 95. The band has split up and reformed 3 times, leaving Brad Fincher, the drummer, as the only original member. The current lineup is Ruben Rosas, Chris Andrews, Dave Spencer, and Brad Fincher. The band is currently signed to Relapse Records and was previously signed to Brutal Bands, United Guttural, and Corpse Gristle Records. Devourment has also had albums reissued by other labels. Since the band's foundation, Devourment released a demo, an album, Molesting the Decapitated, before disbanding due to the jailing of vocalist Ruben Rosas. There was a brief reformation of the band during his incarceration, which saw the initial release of a compilation album, and a brief reformation upon his release in 2002. The band reformed for a third time in 2005, has since released 2 reissues of 138, 2 DVDs, and 4 full-length albums: Butcher the Week, Unleash the Carnivore, Conceived in Sewage, and tonight's topic of discussion, Obscene Majesty. Thank you, Wikipedia, for making us a little bit smarter. What we typically do here, Melanie, I'm sure you've watched the show. We start off with our first impression, and we're going to start off with you.
Yeah. So when this album came out in 2019, I admittedly did not listen to it at all. I was pretty turned off with their last album. I was not a huge fan of what the hell was it called? Something Sewage.
Conceived in Sewage.
Yeah. Which came out in 2013. At the time, Mike Majowski, I think is how you say his name, was the vocalist. The vocals just sounded strange to me on that album. It wasn't as that brutal sound that I loved from Molesting the Decapitated and even Butcher the Week. So when I did first hear it, it was probably like a year after. I remember it was right around pandemic time, like when I actually had more time to listen to music. And when I did first hear it, I remember thinking it was by far the most brutal album I'd ever heard, ever. Like, which is saying a lot considering I was a huge fan of Molesting the Decapitated, and I thought that was the most brutal album I had ever heard before that. Yeah, I don't know how to say his last name. But yeah, I just remember the first time I actually heard it and listened to it, I was pissed off at myself for not listening to it when it first came out. It was hard to find on vinyl at that time, so I was mad because I couldn't get it then. So I settled for the CD. But I remember thinking it was one of the most brutal albums I'd ever heard for the first time, like ever. It just blew my mind. The guitar tone, all of that stuff. So I fell in love with it as soon as I finally heard it. But I definitely think it was a really good bounce back album from their previous 2 that they released before this.
All right. Kellen.
Yeah, I had kind of I don't want to say cut ties, or I was not initially interested in a Devourment record. In terms of my favorite brutal death metal bands from this era, while I think Molesting the Decapitated is an important record, there are bands that I would choose in front of them, like California's Disgorge or Severed Torture. Like, I think they're better in this style, or at least they have a more complete and consistent catalog. I did eventually come around to listening to it, and similar to Melanie's first impression, the production pushed it in a direction and caught my attention in a way that I don't think most traditional or brutal death metal bands sound like today, and two, sound totally different than the kind of slam bands that they inspired. So it kind of caught me by surprise, for sure.
Let you go last, Jim, since you picked it. For me, I remember the day I bought this. I saw a little bit of a hubbub about this online on YouTube, and we were at Vertigo Records. Myself, Chris Boris, who is in the chat tonight. What's up, Chris? And my buddy Jason. We went down there. I picked this up on CD. I almost bought the vinyl. I'm like, nah, I'm just gonna get the CD. Listened to it in the vehicle on the way back. We were all pretty well amazed at what we were hearing, but it kind of gives you that creeped out ill feeling. It's just so overtly brutal and chaotic. It felt like I just couldn't digest it. It was just too much coming out, too much to, I mean, this isn't a hook album. It isn't, there's not a lot of hooks on here. It's just a lot of the songs they feel very linear. It's just kind of unsettling. So my first initial reaction was very impressed. First and foremost, this guitar tone. I mean, there's several times in your life you remember a guitar tone. Entombed's Left Hand Path. I mean, that guitar tone launched a million guitars, a million bands. And this guitar tone, I have never heard a guitar tone so foul, disgusting, sinister sounding. It's just a malevolent guitar tone. And you listen, and tonight I listened to the album that came before this, Conceived in Sewage. It's kind of there. But whatever they did on this record, holy crap, they upped it 1,000%. They made it for a single guitar band. It's just absolutely malevolent sounding. So yeah, this album, finally, I had to take a lot of time. I just kept listening to it, and finally it clicked on a good stereo system with a sub. You hear all those bass drops, and those are typically cheesy, but in this album's case, man, it like raises the hair on the back of your head. It's like sick. It just makes it so sick. Anyway, what was your first impression on that, Jim?
Well, I came to visit you not too long after you bought that, because I remember we were sitting in your basement and you played it for me. Because let's just get this out there. Outside of like the earliest of the early, Suffo, Dying Fetus, I'm not a brutal death metal guy.
It's kind of a one-trick pony.
Yeah, it's like, okay, pig sounds, slam riff, repeat, misogynistic lyrics, blah blah. And but when you put this on, I was taken in immediately. It sounded so, it lived up to what I call the promise of brutal death metal. Like, I really felt evil coming through the speakers. I felt the darkness, and I was taken with it. And it was what the weird thing was when I got back home to Florida, like I was always on my radar, and I kept planning on getting it. And it was a long time before I did. In fact, we were talking about it, quote unquote, backstage, at a Metallurgy, and that's what put it back in my mind. And then I finally, pulled the trigger. That I made sure that we covered it, because like I got that exact feeling again when I revisited it, and I've really enjoyed playing the hell out of it over and over and over. I'm absolutely not sick of this album at all. So no, I think this is something special here. And we can get into that later, but yeah, definitely first impressions was, it fulfilled what I think was, what, the atmosphere and, the drama that the fans and other bands in this scene promised, but I feel like failed to impress upon me. So
awesome. Did you have an idea for?
Yeah, I do. And the thing is for me, what do you guys feel about Devourment's, place in this scene? I know there's a lot of controversy, even in this scene. I think from what I've, read or whatever, these guys have a lyrical focus and, some criminal background that make them maybe a little more sort of like, kind of the bosom of their scene or whatever. you know, do you guys think that, you know, Devourment deserve, you know, what appears to be their placement near the top of this, you know, latter era, you know, brutal death metal scene? Or do you feel that, you know, it's been overrated in some places, and there's a hype machine beneath it?
Melanie, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely one of those people that hypes up, you know, Molested Decapitated. Like, that's an album that I own on like 4 different formats, like 4 different copies of each different format. I'm not a fan of the lyrical content in Butcher of the Week. There's a lot of misogynist lyrical content they have, but unfortunately, that is the general type of theme that brutal death metal tends to carry. And that has always been a pretty big turnoff for me, and so I don't listen to a lot of it nowadays. But I think they are the pinnacle, like, godfathers of the brutal death metal, like, slam, borderline slam genre, and I do think that they hold a place that should be up in the higher tier. People should, you know, give them that pedestal and put it on. I think they've set a precedent, and a lot of people are trying to mimic it. It's so saturated with the mimicking in the scene. So I definitely think, you know, the hype is warranted. But yeah, there's a lot of the controversy that comes with the band. But again, what band doesn't have controversy nowadays? Not to say that that's a pass by any means, but I think in terms of just for the specific genre of this metal music, it deserves to have the title of, you know, being one of the best bands around to do it, especially with this particular album coming out in 2019, when they've been out for so long already. They listening to Decapitated was like, what, 20 years later, or 20 years before this album came out, and they're able to just make this pinnacle album once again, that all of these newer bands are now trying to mimic the style once again. I think that's worth weight that they can carry, for sure.
Right on. Kellen, your thoughts?
Okay. So
TJ is emerging.
To unpack, I feel a little bit hesitant to trying to unpack the question surrounding misogyny, sexual violence within brutal death metal. I think that's a really large conversation. So I don't want to get, like, I think I would get distracted trying to unpack that.
Cliff Notes version: misogyny is bad.
There you go.
I don't like it. Yeah.
Well, okay, like, so my aside though is to that. You know, I don't know, because this is a conversation, like when you were listening back to Stripped, Raped, and Strangled, like there's a certain precedent, and I don't know within the death metal community if at the time they felt as sort of, there was much of an uproar about it. For me, what's challenging is to talk about this subject, you also have to talk about a relationship between death metal, horror, film, and all the different subgenres, and pornography. I think there's a relationship between all those mediums, and unpacking them and their history starting in the 1980s all the way through today, that's too much. I can't do that. So what I would say in terms of their role in brutal death metal and how they should be remembered in terms of influence, I personally think, culturally speaking, the brutal death metal community and the slam community more specifically that Devourment helped to sort of create, almost culturally is separate than the vast majority of the metalheads that I end up spending time with. I don't see a lot of sort of like community sharing sort of ideas, you know, liked or shared values, anything that has to do with like the records you love that I love, from the album artwork to how they consume the art. Like, I think it's fundamentally a different part of the metal community to some extent. And while sure, a branch, I don't know how many classic records within slam the altogether metal community embraces. and that to that degree, I think Devourment has sort of limited the scope of their acceptance and influence in terms of how important they are. There's an entire other subculture that they help to create, but I don't feel how many classic slam records are there that we all think are worth our time. Please go grab this. There's Molesting the Decapitated, but after that, there's maybe a handful. And we're talking about 20 some years later.
Is this a slam record?
I don't think it is.
I don't think it
refuse to say
is.
it's slam, but it gets classified that
It's there. It's on the cusp.
That's right.
Yeah.
So this is in the same way that often happens. Genre originators walk the line, right?
Mm-hmm.
Suffocation is a brutal death metal band and a technical death metal band and an old school death metal band. Like they get to be all those things, a classic death metal band. I think Devourment sits at the next sort of precipice, I think, within the genre. So I personally view it in terms of the riffs they're writing, 100%. That is a slam style riff. All the bands that are mimicking them are in a slam sort of genre. I think they are fundamentally a part of that conversation. You cannot talk about slam without talking about Molested the Decapitated, period.
No.
It just, you have to. I'm not saying it's the originator, but you have to talk about them. So this is a very long-winded answer to that question because I felt like, oh, don't go here, Jim. We're going to do it. And then I'm going to get in trouble. But I guess that's kind of my perception about how much respect or how influential we should consider them, where they rank within the greater sort of pantheon of death metal bands. Until I think their influences are sort of accepted and we can put more and more of all the bands that they sort of spawned within like a greater conversation about important death metal records, like it's going to limit how much we accept them as a community.
I got a question because I feel like this is very interesting. I feel like, and I know we're here to talk about Devourment, but whenever I don't have any slam friends, right? You guys are the closest to that I have, and so I don't. But I have gotten. Serious. This is not a diss. This is just a reality. And so my question, but what I've kind of read and seen, is like the whole even the word slam. It gets rid of the word metal. It gets rid of, I mean, do these guys, and to your point, like Kellen, like the fans are kind of maybe different from your average metalhead. Do these guys not consider themselves metal fans? And if so, should we care? I mean, what is the situation here? Why is there even a term? Like as a true metalhead, it always annoys the hell out of me when anyone takes the word metal out of our genre, our genre, and then uses our sounds. You know what I mean? So is it just shorthand for brutal death metal, or are these guys thinking they're on some other plane that they're separate from metal? Like, what's the deal there? Can someone expand on that for me?
I think the idea of slam is more of a style of dance it inspires. It's still a version of brutal death metal, but I think slam has more groovy breakdowns. And I think that element is certainly a part of the Devourment evolution, but they get to this record, it's here. There's a lot of skank face and head nodding going on here, but they've evolved into something so sick and complex and twisted. This isn't a get on the floor and, swing like you're thwarting off a, Kung Fu master. I don't know. I don't know, but Kellen, you were going to say something. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I might not be the best answer for that, right? Like this is not something that I spend a lot of time in. But I do like this era of death metal is the one that I grew up with. Like 97 to 2004, like those are for me like really important death metal years. And this is happening sort of in this next sort of kind of brutal death metal that turns into something else is going on. So I don't personally identify with like a lot of the modern slam world. It almost seems to me have more in common to some degree musically with like glitch and different kind of electronica, like waiting for a bass drop. Like that whole sound to me is alien to some extent. So I might not be the best sort of ambassador for this cause, but yeah, I don't know exactly what limits sort of the overall acceptance between the two communities.
Getting back to the original idea of this, I'm not a slam brutal. I do have some, probably more than some, less than others. I appreciate it from a technical standpoint. I think it's largely silly, and like a lot of metal fans, when you start dipping into these controversial topics, I'm 52 years old. I'm completely 1000% desensitized to all of it. I hear it. I realize it's a problem. I don't relate to it because I'm not the type of person that A, wants to hurt women, or B, thinks it's funny when women get hurt. All that stuff. It just seems like horror. It's like, and a lot of people that are doing this stuff don't feel that way either. It's just, well, this one band A did it and it's sick, so I'm going to do it too. And that's just the style, and that's just what you do. That doesn't make it right. And the funny thing is, I think even Devourment saw the problematic nature of misogyny, and even came out in interviews. I believe, I didn't read them, I've just heard secondhand that they're moving away from that. So before this, I actually read through the lyrics. I didn't go through and like study them, but I skimmed them, which is more than I ever do for any, because I don't care what people have to say much anymore. I'm so desensitized to Satan. I'm desensitized to violence, to gore, to massage, all that stuff. And they wrote from a very first person. There was no obvious woman torture type stuff going on in it. So you could tell that either they saw the light in that department, or realized that they wrote a record that stood to really move the goalposts a little bit as far as brutality goes, and didn't want it drugged down in any way with a negative connotation to it. And getting back, I think one of the another initial points to your question, Jim, are they warranted? Is innovative? I mean, this is not an innovative. I've got all their albums except for the debut, and all of them are good. This one is great. It took them a while to get here, but what I hear them doing, what they came out in 95 or 97, I can't remember. I think 95. They're not reinventing the wheel. Suffocate, they're not doing anything different from. So, I mean, if these guys are seen as forefathers, I mean, they're emulating Suffocation and the bands that came before them. Let's look at other early bands, like even, I think me and TJ were talking about this at brand practice. Buffalo's Baphomet. They're like an early version of that New York brutal death metal style, but maybe a little more old school death metal than the sick slam stuff. Are these guys innovators? I don't know. I think a lot of people that are in slam probably look up to them. And again, I am kind of outside of this. I'm more of an old school death metal guy and a black metal guy. I'm not. Melanie probably answered that question. I mean, she already did. She said, yeah. She's way more grounded in this style than I am. I'm like, we drive by a motorcycle accident on the freeway. Everybody has to stop and look and see the gore and awfulness. You don't want to, but you still look. I'm kind of that way when it comes to this stuff. I've got a lot of key bands in the scene. I might have a handful of non-key bands that ended up in my collection. Do I ever listen to them? Nah. This one I keep coming back to, and that to me means it's a special album. What do you think on your own question there, Jim?
Well, regarding slam, I mean, I was leaving it to you guys because I'm really ignorant to the whole scene.
I'm pretty ignorant too, to be honest.
One of the things I was going to mention was, I did already. Is that this, not only did it deliver on the promise, like I mentioned earlier, but I didn't hear anything that really grabbed me or that I hadn't heard before in the scene. You would get those tapes from Craig, Zoller would send you the tapes and, or the CDs rather. And we'd spin them and I would just shrug, I just couldn't, nothing was there. But when I heard this, I was like, wow, man. And I completely agree with you. That guitar tone is
putrid.
be one of the most evil guitar sounds I have ever heard.
Yeah,
I don't
easy.
know how they created that or what was going on. I would love to know.
I would love to see his gear.
yeah, but I mean, it just speaks pure darkness. I mean, that guitar player reached inside of himself and pulled out hell, and made it come out through the speakers, and it really is amazing. And but what's weird is, like, as dark as it is, it's well, I mean, it's not weird, we're metalheads. I mean, but I just keep coming back to it over and over again. It was absolutely no chore for me whatsoever to spin this thing like 20 times in prep for tonight, and I'll continue to spin it after. And there's just, and what's weird is, here we have a band that is slam, whatever that is, I mean, with the breakdown riffs or whatever, and there's the brutality, but man, there is nuance here. Every time I listen to this record, I hear something new, and as part of that is due to the fact that the guitars are so buried in, like, distortion upon distortion. That's what it feels like to me. It's like layers and layers and layers of distortion, but in there, after your ears start picking out different things, and there's just so much to return to. And I gotta say, if there's anywhere in that scene something like this, please point it my way. Because
I haven't heard anything this sick.
Really
I haven't heard anything this sick. No way.
I mean, luckily we got a lot of people in the chat. We have our expert Melanie, who loves death metal. She has a deeper knowledge in this than all of us. And so, but yeah, I'm serious. I'm so behind this. Like, a lot of times when I dip a toe into a scene, like, I don't start out buying vinyl. I mean, I'll get some, I'll get CDs or tapes.
That's why I bought this, because I don't want to spend the extra cash for
exactly.
something I won't listen to.
Right. With this, it was after hearing it from you, I was straight to vinyl. I mean, because I knew that this was something that was going to continue to get many, many plays from me, and it has, and it will. So, yeah, I don't remember what the question was. Don't even really care. I'm just glad we're talking about this record now.
Right on. Mike, thank you so much for your contribution. We appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. Let's talk about the, what are you going to say, Melanie? Go ahead.
I was going to say Human Falafel called out Defeated Sanity in the chat.
Oh, they're good. I've heard them. They're good.
They're definitely more like the brutal technical death metal sound, but they carry a very good weight in my eyes. They have a lot of really good albums out. I think they're so underrated in terms of that brutal death metal sound too. It's a very good band.
All I can say is that the biggest, we'll talk about this in a second. We're going to be discussing the musicality and composition of Obscene Majesty. And Melanie, you're up. We might as well start with you.
Yeah, I was joking with you earlier, like the musicality of this album, because it's just so goddamn in your face, destroys you from the moment that opening sample finishes, and then it just sounds like a 1,000 trash cans just being thrown at you, which is how aggressive the overly distorted guitars are, and then just like Brad's drumming just completely pile drives you. But that said, the drumming on this record is incredible. The man can hit the sticks and as fast as possible.
Gravity blasts are really sick, really tight.
Yeah, those blasts are so good. The down, like the bass drop that goes along with this. There's so much variation in these songs. It's not to me personally, it's not a linear album by any means. A lot of this brutal death metal sound does tend to get linear, especially within the vocal style. Those guttural vocals can tend to kind of get boring after a while, but there's so much going on in these songs in terms of the guitar riffs and the guitar lines and the bass drops and the drum tracking. It's just incredible that every song sounds different into my ear. I mean, maybe somebody that's not very familiar with this type of metal would think it all sounds the same. But like Jim said, every time you listen to this album, you hear something new. You hear a little bit of intricacy in a song that you didn't hear, the first 300 times you listened to it. And I think just there's a musicianship on here that is incredible. Like these are a group of guys that are writing really, really good, death metal, slamming brutal death metal, whatever you want to call it, to the point of where I think in my eyes, it's hard to mimic. I think bands can try to mimic this sound that they have in this album, but they'll never do it as good as what they've done on this album. And it's just, they're really well written songs. There's not a bad song on this album, in my opinion.
No,
there's some better than others for sure that stand out a little bit more, but for the most part, from the beginning to end, it's a pummeling onslaught of just sonic torture to your ears in all the best ways possible. But yeah, musicianship is off the charts on this. The guys are super talented. They got together. They wrote, in my eyes, one of the most flawless death metal albums in my collection. I think that just the vocal style, those guttural vocals, like they can get a little bit bland from here and there within albums, but I'm consistently engaged every single song. They mixed really well with
Ruben's voice is just putrid.
He's great.
It's so
I mean,
good. No
was
pig squeals, which is good. I hate that shit.
Yeah. I mean, he was molesting and decapitated, so it was nice that they came back to him. I understand, he was in prison and all that stuff, but I much prefer his vocal style for this band. So that was, I think, a big selling point once I finally heard this album.
First off, thank you, Gore Metal Agnoroff. You're gonna need to take out a second job, all these super chats, man. We appreciate it. Thank you. Get to work. Kellen, your thoughts?
So I actually think, I don't know if without the production what this record would sound like. But
that's a big
But let's just go for the songwriting. So another thing, the lack of pig squeals, which is an A+ in my book.
Mm-hmm.
Also, and I know this may be a sensitive topic, Melanie, I am sorry, no ping snare.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I'm glad.
Yes.
It's got
I'm
the
glad.
snappy snare though.
I know you're a fan. You're a fan of the ping. But I like my brutal death metal with a bit more of a traditional snare sound. So, call me a poser if you will.
No.
The riffs, I would say, what probably stands out to me is especially what made this a record that was easier to return to was, yes, that like super down tempo thing that gets thrown around is a slam riff or what would slam mosh sort of deal. But there's a lot of good groove on this record.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what you typically hear now is a lot of modern brutal death metal is pushing such intense velocity consistently. It almost pushes it past like a traditional death metal listen. And I think this record, like the vocal style, 100%, like you hear it, okay, that is what a brutal death metal vocal sounds like no question, like we've taken it to another level. But the songwriting here, I think, shows a degree, I don't want to, if you want to call it maturity, or like they're seasoned vets, like they don't need to push for the most extreme thing here. And there are a couple of tracks on this album, I think some of my favorite, that are the longest. And I think it's a sign that they were able to sort of stretch their legs a little bit, and they are in a rush to, find the next best thing. Like, we found a cool little pocket. Let's hang out in it for a little bit. And it makes the song memorable or enjoyable for a time period before you return to the brutality. So I think that's one of the key aspects of this record is they show a certain level of like maturity and professionalism and how they want to present a genre that is often sort of codified as a sort of a one-trick pony kind of deal. So in that regard, the songwriting here is great. But like for me, a sign, no lead guitar work, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is a key. I think that's a key feature to what would make it a slam record. Is it doesn't present a lot of the signature things that you find with a lot of death metal. It's just a riff record, just punishing, slamming, brutal death metal. And man, we'll get to the production later, but that's all I got to say on the songwriting.
How about you, Jim?
I completely concur with you, Kellen, on the long songs on this record. My two favorite songs on this record are the two longest songs. It's a testament to how interesting the riffs are and how interesting the drums are, as well as the production that I want to hear more than 3 or 4 minutes of this, and I'm okay with it without a solo. To have that level of intrigue in a song, without the normal accoutrements of metal that I like, which are, good solos and, a variety, not of tempos and vocal delivery, stuff like that, for you to kind of stay within your, brutal death metal lane or slam lane, if that's what we're calling this, and hold my interest for that long, where I'm still not ready for the song to end when it does. That means that your attention, though you may be riff only driven, though you don't write a solo, you care about what riffs you were putting in that song, and you edit until every riff is great. And that takes just as much time and effort as it does to write a really good solo, is to put your ego to the side and say, that riff's not good enough, it's going in the trash. That riff's not good enough, it's going in the trash. And do that so many times that when you finally put enough riffs that make sense together into a song, that it, as Melanie was saying, it's perfect. That takes, patience, hard work, and also, talent and skill. And they've got this here, because that's the way I feel about every song on this record, man. There isn't like, oh man, here, I hate this riff. Those words never echoed out of my mouth or in my thought processes through any spin of this album. So, whether it's, I can't tell you what degrees, if we're looking at a pie chart, like how much of this is patience and editing, how much of this is pure talent, how much of this is pure skill and making a song, hold interest in the way that this, in every song is there. I don't know how that breakdown fits within Devourment, but I will say that it's there. And it's strong enough in all of those realms to carry it through. So, with these guys being one of the fathers or grandfathers of the genre, what have you, I can see why that happened, because, obviously the worlds collided, with these guys getting together. I know they've had a revolving, members, but I know Ruben and, Brad are the kind of more or less the core or whatever. And it really comes across because it's Ruben's perfect vocal sound for this, Brad's awesome drumming. His drums to me are just as important on this record as the riffs. What he does on the drums perfectly complements the riffs, and in some cases even overshadows the riffs, which is saying a lot because I really like the guitar playing, and we'll get into that later when we talk about favorite songs and stuff. But yeah, musical composition. It's right on for me. I need to visit their other catalog more. Obviously you guys are more familiar with it. I've listened to like Conceit and Sewage much, and it just didn't grab me. I didn't like the production on it. It's like compared to this, it's like super clean, and I just didn't really get that. So I gotta spend some more time with it. But yeah, this one right here, to Marty's point, it's right on. So.
Kellen kind of hit the nail on the head for me. What would this album be without this production? The guitar sound for me is such a focal point. Well, there's two focal points. And yeah, Brad's drum work is amazing. The guitar sound, there's parts in these songs where they're just crunching on that A. And it's so filthy. The guitar tone is so filthy, yet clear. You could hear what's going on. It's just malevolent. It's got a malevolent sound. Any other person just crunching on the A with a crappier guitar tone. Conceived in Sewage, I listened to 3/4 of it tonight before we went live. I'm like, wow. Yeah, I can tell it's the same band. But the sound, I see the sound of this album. We'll talk about this in production in a minute. The sound of this album is a problem for them moving forward. If they can't maintain this production on the next album, it's not going to be the same for me. The production is a big part of the songs on here. the songs themselves. I think the songs themselves, there are moments where riffs repeat. I really have to pay attention for that to come by. And I found myself only really noticing the differentiation between tracks by little guitar tricks. I think it's the second song, Cognitive Sedation Butchery, with those sick false harmonic bends and squawks. It's like that picks it out. And there's a song later on in this, what is it? I don't know. There's one song where like he's holding his finger over the fret and like picking the strings. It's like a lot of bands do it, but that's another song that stands out. That's the hook. The sound that he makes with the guitar, like on those muted frets with the string dive or whatever, is like the hook of the song. When I listen to this album, I'm focused on the sound, the way it makes me feel. And Ruben's vocals are so sick. I don't care that he's not doing many dynamics. I don't care there's no higher. It's all low. It's a constant hypnotic barrage of brutality. It rules. It really sells a lot of these songs for me. But when I listen to this album, I have to really focus for reoccurring riffs, because a lot of these songs feel very linear. There's not a lot of repetition. If there is, I've missed it. I've just kind of like, I'm on my little raft on a river of blood, just kind of floating along each song. And I'm looking forward to each song. It could be one long 40-minute long song and I wouldn't care. It's just sick, head nodding, skank face. Holy crap, this is amazing sounding. There doesn't sound like the hooks. Some of the hooks are just the open A crunch. I don't know. The songwriting is kind of perplexing to me. And that's why this album took a bunch of listens to work through that. Once I embraced the sound and started to get a little more accustomed to the songs, there's some parts that do reoccur, but there's just a feeling of, it just seems very linear. Does anybody else agree? Like riff, 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 riff. And there might be one riff that repeats here and there, but it just kind of feels like they're on all of a sudden there's like very cool dynamics. They don't just stick in the mid pace. They go to the like blasting, and then it goes to gravity blasts, and then it's all over. The peaks and valleys of this are tempo. Well, what do you guys think about the linear? There's no hooks. There's no like traditional trope songwriting hooks on here. No verse, chorus, verse, chorus. It feels like one long verse. There's no standout choruses. It's just start to finish brutality.
Doesn't need it, man.
It doesn't need it. And that's this album. Thanks to the sound, it sold an album that denies conventional song structure. It denies conventional song structure. I mean, The Glory is Dead. We think, verse, chorus, bridge, just kind of the way you shit it out after a while. It's so, and then afterwards you're like, well, maybe we could do this to make it more interesting. I get the feeling listening to this record that they have no concern for that. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They're writing killer ass riffs, tying it together with, and it's kind of cool. But if they did the same album and it had a shitty sound to it, the impact would be huge. The sound on this is part of the reason why a lot of these songs work.
100%. The production is what takes this over the top and what makes it special, and the tone that they captured in the guitars specifically.
Yep.
But yeah, I agree for sure.
Speaking of which, let's talk about production. Kellen, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think just in a completely different note, but or I should say switching lanes, but I'll try to tie together a theme here. When we did the Sacred Outcry deep dive, we talked about like the production having a personality, or like playing like a band member within the record.
Yeah. Absolutely. This is the same way.
Yeah, I just did a thing on Black Metal Records. One of my favorite Mayhem record is Order Out Chaos.
Oh, me too.
Record,
Murky.
Production is like it defines like another character.
Yep.
This album for me lives and dies on the value and impact of the production. I don't know how to state, like when Jim was mentioning the layers of distortion, like the weight, I don't know how they were able to capture just the weight and body of the distortion. I don't know how to describe that, but like there's enough distinction between the guitars and the bass where you can sort of catch leading edges of the distortion. But it's kind of wallop that happens simultaneously is immediately gratifying. And often I think brutal death metal is a genre where you don't look at it like sort of over the larger sort of scope. You talk about it being sort of a linear listen. It's almost like you have to enjoy it in the moment, because trying to keep track of all the chaos and brutality is sort of like
it'll make you crazy. That's why I struggled with this album the first couple times through. I couldn't make sense of it.
It's a losing effort.
Yeah.
So you just kind of have to enjoy the moment. It's not just like the none of it sounds triggered.
No.
So the drums are based in a different era, which I think is enjoyable and matches sort of the amount of attack you get on this record. I just think there's so much to enjoy in terms of a guitar tone that feels 100% modern. Like, I don't think you could do this, 20, 30 years ago. But at the same time, like it gives you like a new kind of sound you can revel in. I personally like, there's other great sounding brutal death metal records, but I think this is one of its era and sits on a unique sort of in a unique space where you can say that, this is one of the best ways in 2019 or 2023 that you can make a brutal death metal sound. So yeah.
Melanie, your thoughts on the production?
The production, it's funny because it's not like the first thing that I ever really thought about when I listened to this album. But now listening to it, I do think that if it was a shitty production, I don't know how much I would love this album. Just to say that. The guitar tone, like we've said it 100 times already, sounds so good on this, and just the way that they did the blending with the guitar tone, the drums, the bass, the vocals. It just is. It ironically goes really well together for how chaotic of an album it is. Sometimes when there's chaos in an album, you tend to only hear one specific thing because of how the mix is with it. Like if it's a war metal album, sometimes you only just hear the guitars, where the vocals are kind of just blended off into the distance, similar to like a black metal album. For this album, it sounds like just perfection. Like they took their time with it, and they really, like, they didn't just say, hey, let's make this brutal album and have it be a masterpiece with the production, which you don't get that very often within this genre of music. Mostly because probably of funding, I'm assuming. Devourment probably had a little bit more funding considering they were signed to Relapse. So they probably had that going for them for this. I do wonder if they, had continue on for a smaller label, would it sound the same? I don't know. Like, it's hard to say. But yeah, I think the production is pretty much what you guys have said 100 times already. It is the reason why this album is so spectacular. Like one of the main focal points of this album for sure. Which is funny to say because in a lot of the death metal I listen to, that is not what makes the album great. So this is a lot of the opposite that I'm used to when it comes to that.
I will say that according to the Encyclopedia Metallum, it says produced at 379 production, mastered at Audio Siege Mastering Studio, Portland, Oregon. So I don't know. It doesn't say who recorded it other than the studio.
But so I looked into this because I thought this would come up. So the producer, D. Braxton Henry, he's been producing their records. He did other, Unleash the Carnivore, Butcher the Week, 138. Like
something changed.
Right. I don't know what happened here, but there was
he got a new thing. He bought a new box that did a thing.
Yeah, there's something else going on.
You've been into a studio. There's like 1,000 boxes that light up and blink and do this.
It's possible that the band probably got a little bit more sponsorship in terms of equipment. So like that,
Or they
I mean,
got their some equipment modded. I don't know.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, like that's not to say that. Well, Conceived in Sewage was awful sounding, but like Butcher
It's
the
not
Weekend.
great.
No, in Molesting and Decapitated, like for the years that they were released, they sound good. I mean, it's not a overly bad production quality. So I'll give them credit for that. Like I think the band just writes really good music together, for like the main like base of the band that's there. Like Ruben has been there, and Brad. I know that Mike has been there for several of the releases too. So I think that there's just that chemistry that they have, and they hit the nail on the head with the production this time for it.
Jim, your thoughts on the production?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, well, we've all kind of touched on it a lot, so I'll try to avoid beating a dead horse. But I think that a lot of attention was paid to not just the guitars and the drums and the vocals, but even like Melanie mentioned it earlier. Like, man, one of the first things I do when I put on any record, if it's in a digital format, I'm always skipping the intro. I listen to it when I first get
Yes,
a
you
record.
can. It's part of the first song. You can't do
Yeah.
it.
Mhm.
Well, yeah.
Well, you
yeah.
could,
I mean,
but-
if it's obviously if it's on vinyl, I play through it and I wait, but I have not ever skipped the intro to this, and I won't ever skip the intro to this because it is so emblematic about what's about to come. It's about what is about to punch you in the face, and it just starts right there. Even the way that the intro sounds, like it's just, I can't even describe the way it sounds. It sounds like what wind, if it was fiery, would feel like, is what that intro sounds like to me.
Perfect.
And every time I hear it, I want to hear it like that, and that just opens the door for what's about to come production wise. There's just an attention to like creating, a realm about you when you're hearing this, and whether it was intentional or not, or a happy accident, or a combination of the two, like it just works. I mean, the mounds of distortion and the underlying bass, the overlying bass of the vocal, all of that just kind of combines in this like swirling mass of like wretchedness that is appealing to the twisted minds like ourselves that loves this kind of stuff. Yes. So yeah, kudos to that guy, whether it was in your words, Marty, a new box on the wall, or I don't know, maybe he just, got better at what he does.
Put the mic in the right spot. Because I mean, listen, Conceived, you could hear the tone. The tone is there. It's just too clean and just sounds kind of average,
Yeah, I was surprised, because like I said, I'm a novice to the genre, but hearing this, like I went this and then went back, and first album I went back to was Conceived in Sewage, and I'm like, whoa, it almost sounds like a totally different band. Like it was so clean after listening to this right before, like I felt like covering my ears. Like I was like, yeah, like, what's going on? I'm sure that if I'd heard that first, when it came out, I wouldn't feel the same way. But and maybe that my opinion will change with time. But yeah, certainly, this is on another level. If this guy took some online courses to watch some YouTube videos to create this production mastery, whatever it is, hey man, share that with the rest of the world. We would like to have a head turner of a record sound like this too. So good job to him.
And my buddy Noah said there's an actual gear breakdown of them online, which I'm interested to check out now. But
I will be checking it out.
Production, I've already kind of gone into it a bunch. For me, the production is a big part of this record. Huge. I just cannot get over how putrid and Jim's description of like standing in a wind of fire, filled with fire and like burning pieces of metal, is how that guitar sound is. I haven't felt so captivated by guitar sound since Left Hand Path. I mean, that, thick as a buffalo chainsaw guitar sound on Left Hand Path, or, Dismembers Like an Ever Flowing Stream, or this. It's different. It's unique. It doesn't sound like every slam band on the planet. What did we just cover here a couple weeks ago? It was kind of slammy. Spawn of Possession.
Spawn of Possession. I was surprised that you guys did that album.
That record was very clean sounding, and you listen
Yeah.
to this, it just shows how polluted and evil and menacing a record can sound, yet still have clarity and definition to it. Knowing that there's one guitar player, Chris Andrews, cheers to you, Chris, for a lot of awesome riffs and amazing sound. I'm curious to see how this comes across live, because very few bands sound like live like they do in the studio.
They're
They
good.
do? They sound
Yeah.
good?
Oh yeah. They're so fun too. I mean, for the most part, they're older now, so Ruben's like explosion around the stage is not as much as in their younger days, but
The older
yeah,
you
just
get, explosion means a completely different thing.
but the guy stands there. the guy
It's a
stands there
different. Yeah.
and just does his vocals, and he just stands there and does it, and you're just like, I don't ever want to fuck with that guy, because he's like, you can. It's
And he went to
effort.
prison, so that's another reason.
Yeah,
For something.
I think it was drug possession, by the way.
it was
I
drug
know.
possession. It wasn't anything. I mean, who knows? But yeah, it wasn't anything bad. I mean, drug possession.
So he didn't gut a prostitute or something. That's all. We're good.
Yeah, it wasn't. He didn't kill. Euronymous.
Yeah.
So.
But he was on his way to do so.
On the scale of things to do, is it okay?
But yeah, no, they're good live. The bass player, Dave, he does like the old school kind of like Korn like bass playing. He plays it like upright and like puts it between his legs. It's just, they're fun to watch though. They're good. They sound good.
Production for me, it's great. It's absolutely great. It's the fifth member of the band. It's a very important part. And moving forward, if I get their next record and it doesn't sound at least this good, I'm probably not going to be interested. I will look at the album. It'll be easier to judge the record on the merits of the riffs alone. Which I can judge this album on the riffs alone, and they're sick. They're great riffs. It isn't all just palm muted crunches. It's there's some cool stuff going on, and whether it's the false harmonic, which is it's a thing. It's a staple. It's an element that is often used in this style, but with this guitar tone, it is sicker. It's sicker. The bends, he does some open chord type stuff too. The open chord finish.
It's like brrr.
Yeah, it's like wow. It's like whoa. It's like fucking demons in hell from another dimension.
I don't know how he does
feel it
going
over your body. Yeah, it's so good.
It's sludge personified, man.
Oh,
but
man.
not sludge metal. It's like actual sludge.
So Jumpfart says Ruben was in prison for murder. So there you go.
So
somebody consult the oracle.
I don't know. I looked into this though, and I could not find that like for sure. So many people were saying it was for drug possession, but I don't know. Whatever. Hey.
All right, let's get into favorite, least favorite songs. I don't have to have dinner with the guy, so I'm not worried about it. But all I know is his vocals on this record are super sick. Great job, Ruben. All that killing made you sicker, apparently.
Right. Well, I'm definitely not going to mess with the guy now. Favorite song is "Sculpted in Tyranny." My God, that song probably has more dimension than the rest of the songs in that it like slows down and does this fade out that they do for a couple minutes there, where it's just the distorted guitars and just the drumming, but it's very faded into the background, and it's a jam fest. Like it's just total. It's just good. That's my favorite song. I always really like get into the groove with that song when that part comes on. Crank it up higher, and it just you really get into that song. That's definitely my favorite song. And then I also think Profane Contagion is how you say there. It's quite possibly one of the best songs that they've ever written in their catalog.
Great. It's my favorite on the album for sure.
And I've seen some people hail it as like a top 10 song ever written in the scene, which I'm not too deep into the scene, so I can't say that for sure. But I love that song too. It's got those. Those like pick muting. I don't know. They're not like pick scrapes, because pick scrapes drive me crazy a lot of times in songs. They do it in like this I don't know what you're saying, like almost like a muted pick scrape. It's kind of like a weird sound that they do.
Well, what you do if you're thinking of the same song, you push your finger over the fret, you just touch
yeah,
and you like just start the first string and like run the pick up and it makes like this sound. It's like
yeah.
funky and weird. I can do it when I'm farting around, but I would never use it in a song. But they use it and it acts kind of like that stupid sound is the hook for the song. You know, it's interesting.
So those are my two favorite songs.
Rake,
and
there you go.
these-
That's the name.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris.
There
You're
we go.
so smart and beautiful, by the way. Smart and beautiful. Anyway, go ahead.
I had a hard time saying what my least favorite song was because I think every single song on this album is really good.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the last song, Truculent Antipathy, or however you say that, just because it's kind of the more basic song on the album a little bit. I mean, it still has...
But it goes out with a really...
It does. I maybe that's just, I don't know. It was hard to say what my least favorite song was. So I just threw that in my notes just to call that out in my... But for the most part, I don't really have a song on something I don't like at all.
All right. Jim, favorite, least favorite?
I'm kind of aligned with Melanie here on Sculpted in Tyranny, man. I love that song, man. You know, that fade out, which really comprises like a whole third of the song.
Yeah.
Like it just, you know, and it's the longest track on the record, you know, to Kellen's point. And what happens there is that last riff is totally badass. It is such a cool riff. Like you just want to hear, I want to hear it over and over because I'm like, what is he doing? I love that riff. But what makes it special is Brad Fincher's drumming over it because he just keeps changing his drums. He goes, I'm going to do this and it's really cool. And now I'm going to do this and it's really cool. And the riff stays the same. And
Gravity blast, no problem.
Right.
And dude, and, you know, it reminds me of, oh man, is it, God, it's something actually on this album, Cause of Death. Is it Body Bag or Infected, where they play, it's the riff is like over and over. He's like,
well, that's every Obituary album ever.
And then, you know, it's like, no, it isn't either, dude. That song is special, man. You know, because, you know, Donald he changes his drum beat and they play the same riff for like 2 minutes. But there's like 10 different drum beats on it and it's completely bad. Everyone is memorable. Everyone sticks in your head, and it's my favorite song on that record, though I can't remember the name of it. How great fan I am wearing this shirt. Can't remember the name of the song. But that is what happens on Sculpted in Tyranny. Like he does that. And it's not like, hey, you know what, I'm, you know, Archspire showing off how fast I can do it. It is about memorable, really cool, heavy as hell, headbanging drum style. And it just completely elevates this track to you know, ungodhood. But a very, very, very close second for me is a Violent Strain of Retaliation, the first song, man. That opener, I mean, it's the song that floored me when I first heard this record. So, and every time I hear it, I'm just like, oh, no matter what I'm doing, if I'm working or whatever, I just got to take a second and just, you know, give it the attention. I can't do something else and not pay attention to A Violent Strain of Retaliation.
For everybody watching, give attention means the shirt comes off and it's like left-handed air guitar headbang. The Silver Vortex, we call it. Yeah.
As long as I'm not on a Teams call. Right?
Zoom is on. Oh, damn.
Sorry, my camera just went off, guys.
Check out these titties. Woo!
Yeah. The man boobs are large and powerful. That's for sure. Yeah. What happens when you're pushing 50? Yeah. But anyway, those two are definitely my favorites. And again, like Melanie, I don't really have a song that I don't like. I was gonna write Xenoglosia as like my least favorite. It's track 8, but then there's one of my favorite riffs is on that song, so it'd be disingenuous. He does this low bend on it, but it's a part of the song. It's about 1 minute in, and it's just the coolest thing. It just sounds as brrr. It's almost like he's taking the tuning key and just dropping it down and then pulling it back up and playing the riff. And you've seen people do that before, maybe on like a cheesy hard rock video, but the reality is that's really hard to do in metal and keep your damn guitar in tune, especially if you're playing with a Floyd Rose like 99% of metal guitar players do. So whatever he's doing to do that and to stay in tune and to make a riff out of it is completely badass. So,
Cool.
So like my least favorite song is still badass. You know? So yeah, but definitely I would say, you know, man, you know, check out the intro and track 1 and Sculpted in Tyranny, and you know you're you know you'll be hard pressed to not become a fan of this record. So
Was the shirt on or off, Chris? That's what we want to know. Glistening in the firelight.
I remember that night the shirt was off.
Oh, I remember that night too, and I was on the couch in the fetal position for 2 hours thanks to something you brought to the party. Thanks.
I must break you.
Thanks. Did you break me? You did. All right. Where are we at in the order here? Melanie, did you go yet? Oh,
Yeah.
Kellen's next. Okay.
I'll volunteer here. Okay. So I completely agree. The 2 longer songs, Profane Contagion, Sculpted in Tyranny. Another one that I want to bring up is Arterial Spray Patterns.
Oh, that's a great song too. Yeah.
There's a part in that, like a riff that happens about midway through that song that reminds me of like sort of like an adaptation of like a more technical moment within Cannibal Corpse, where it's like a really sort of and it's just a great little piece that breaks up the monotony.
Syncopated, right?
There we go.
Yeah.
Whatever, like some syncopated spider riff, whatever you want to call it. It just shows like that's in their wheelhouse too. And I like that they're pulling from a different part of death metal for this record. I mean, I personally consider Cannibal Corpse to be brutal in the way that Devourment is, but I know that the band has cited them as an influence, and it's just cool that they have that as a skill. So I loved that moment in Arterial Spray Patterns. My criticism of this in terms of songs isn't actually a specific song, but I just wish this record ended with Sculpted in Tyranny. Sculpted in Tyranny. That I think it's at almost over. It's over 47 minutes. For a brutal death metal record, I don't think it needs, like, if they had made this 7 songs at 40 minutes, like, I would have been good. Every time it fades out like that with the killer sort of drum fills that carry you through it, it's like perfect way to finish this record. And another couple songs kick in, and they aren't bad by any means. It's just, for me, it seems like a perfect closing moment. 40 minutes of brutal death metal. Put a cap at it. We don't need more than that.
So you're saying the truculent antipathy feels more like a bonus track?
It's just they're unnecessary. It's like they had this opportunity to seize a moment on a record, and if it had gone out on that note, like, game over. It'd have been perfect way to close the record. And the fact that they kind of kick on, it's like they're not bad. It just feels unnecessary to me. This is such a punishing listen. I think I would much rather end this record feeling like, I want to listen to it again, rather than like, I need to go back and chase this moment that's kind of ruined by other songs that sort of change the momentum. It just feels so final right there. Like, we just beat the hell out of you for 40 minutes, and we have this awesome riff. The final fill, this crazy sort of snare roll he throws in. Oh, chef's kiss, right? Like, just so perfect. I wanted to end there. And the fact that it carries on for almost another 10 minutes feels like superfluous. It's just unnecessary. So that's my one criticism in terms of how this album plays out.
Hearing you so passionately sell that, I kind of wish I rethought that. But that truculent antipathy song is one of my favorites on the album. I thought it was a great ending track. Some of the more noticeably catchy riffs on the album, though no less brutal, for sure. But for me, my favorite song, we'll start at the beginning. A Virulent Strain of Retaliation. Wow. What a mission statement. You got that killer ass scraping nasty intro that gives way to this violent swarm of riffs and the bass drops. I just cannot get over how much those things excite me. We'll say that. Well, they excite me a little bit. And my wife's got a Jeep, and it's got a bass sub in the back of it. Man, when those things hit, it just adds something cool to the song. It's just like, oh my God. Great mission statement there. Cognitive Sedation Butchery is my favorite song on the album. Again, the bass drops help sell it important parts of the song. There's almost like Ruben's vocals are almost, they're hypnotic. They're like trance inducing, just like this on the way it's not like rapping. It doesn't feel like that at all. It's just like a sick upheaval of like a diatribe. I don't know what it is. It's just a very hypnotic way of selling this very dynamic-less style of singing. The false harmonic bends increase the malevolence on this song. It feels linear riff-wise, which, as I've stated, a lot of the record does, with a crushing tone acting as the prominent hook. It's weird when the production, the guitar tone is kind of the hook of each song, because a lot of these songs are not written in traditional verse, chorus. I mean, my head is way up power metal's butt, and it has been for a while. I love those triumphant choruses, the hooky, and this album is like there's like, if there's choruses here, I'm not feeling them, which is cool.
No
Profane,
Halloween to be found.
No Halloween anywhere. Nope. They ground them all up in a wood chipper, and away they are. Profane Contagion. I love the holding open chords. They do this open chord thing. It just swells. It really digs in with that menacing tone for effect. They return to this multiple times, which kind of acts as the hook for this song with that opening sound. Excellent building of intensity with varying tempos. Again, Brad Fincher's a monster drummer. Dysmorphic autophagia, muted fret string tricks. That's where I'm like, we hold your finger over the fret and then like rake your pick from the first string up. It makes this sound. He does that a lot on this one. That's kind of the hook of this song. This song has a pit slaying mid-pace groove. Oh my God. It's like this the whole time. Like this for most of this album.
I don't think I've ever seen you make that face before, Marty, but I like it.
Yeah, head nodding madness. When the speed kicks in, it comes off even more intense. The dynamics can exist on this album, and it's on that song. Xenoglossia, massive bass hit. Blasting madness once the plotting death chords erode. Fastest, most sinister song on the album? ? The gravity blast at the end is just surging beneath the endless din of fire. Very cool. And Truculent Antipathy, great ending track. Some of the more noticeably catchy riffs on the album, though no less brutal. And I have no complaints. Zero complaints. It could have ended the song before. I guess I never really thought about it, because the songs don't really differentiate much from each other for me. They don't. That in most albums, when I say that's a problem, it's not a problem here. It's just, like I said, I'm on my little inflatable raft with a hole in it in like this blood river going into this giant meat grinder is kind of, and that's another thing. Ruben's vocals, I wrote down ravenous meat grinder vocals. That's kind of what it sounds like. It's just so sick and moist and gross. Awesome. Judgment, final thoughts. Melanie.
Final thoughts. I think this is probably one of the best brutal death metal albums ever written. I think it's going to be hard. I think it'll be hard from the top this album, honestly.
They're going to have a hard time topping this.
Yeah. Which is, kind of disappointing to think about. I won't get my hopes up too high if they ever do announce a new album. But I still listen to this album all the time. I know it only came out in 2019. And just going, actually putting my thoughts down into notes really brought a lot of joy out of me these last
I've had a lot
days.
of fun. Me too. This album, it shouldn't make you happy, but it made me happy listening to it. It's
really
weird.
made me happy. I honestly am probably going to go buy a t-shirt now, because I think that's like one of the more common shirts I see at metal shows now is the kid with the Devourment Obscene Majesty shirt.
It's a killer design. It's a killer piece of art too on the cover.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's just 47 minutes of brutal onslaught that you didn't think that you would fall in love with, and then you do. You kind of just you stop listening, you be like, what the hell just happened to me? And it just becomes an addiction. You just keep going back to it.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's the epitome of what a brutal death metal / slam metal, I don't really know because I'm not that well versed in slam, album should sound like. And I don't think it's going to be able to be topped, but who knows? You never know. Something might come out, but I don't know. I think it's a great album. Honestly, like if I had to give it a ranking, I just 10 out of 10, because it's hard to really say anything negative about this album, really. Like I can find things if I need to, but I've yet to find anything that drives me off that scale to bump it down at all. So, but yeah, it's a great album.
All right, Jim, final thoughts, judgment.
Yeah. It's only like once every 5 years I hear something that really kind of, gives me hope about, the future of metal, that I feel like affects me in such a way where, I'm like, hey man, someone is still able to dig deep down and find something that moves me, that sounds original, but yet isn't so like weird that I can't bang my head to it. I'm a thrash kid, man. I like to bang my head. I'm always going to do it. I'm probably going to be like Tom Araya and have to get like steel put into my neck or something like that. When I like a good record, that's what I do. And this album makes me want to do that. And it's been a long time since I've heard something outside of what I already listen to often, get that same vibe. And there's dozens of times on this album that I feel that vibe. And I'm gonna be with Melanie on this. I think it's a perfect score for me. I've loved this album since the first time I heard it. I'm angry at myself that I waited this long to finally get around to actually buying it, but I finally did, and just listen to it even more than I had before. I can agree with the sentiment of like a little bit of sadness, because I don't know that they can beat this, but maybe that's okay. You know what I mean? A good friend of me and Marty's once said, "I'm not a fan of bands, I'm a fan of albums," and I really like that statement. And I think that
Who said
doesn't
that?
really matter. That was Tanner, man.
Oh,
from
yeah.
Obscene.
Yeah.
And Tanner said that, and it always stuck out with me when he said that.
Yeah.
and I completely agree. So maybe it doesn't even matter. I'm just full of gratitude that something this just pure metal came along and inspired this old guy to want to thrash around like a maniac. So kudos to them. This album rules. Period.
All right, Kellen.
Records like this, so I'll agree with the sentiment in terms of like, yes, it's a tremendous record, awesome. What's also problematic is it keeps me from closing the door. Like, there's so many times I want to write this world off, that like it's not going to be worth my time. It's just going to be, I mean, from someone who likes brutal death metal, I've spent time going through distros at Severed and Unmatched Brutality and Comatose. Like, there's not a whole lot of, Devourment, Obscene Majesties floating around there, right? Like, you could spend all day going through that stuff, and I don't think you're going to find records on this caliber. But I often will catch myself being, like, I'm sure everyone here, kind of a searcher, and I always want to know, where's this record? Like, where's its equal? Where's some other who's getting this right? It's that kind of a record that I think keeps my horizons open a little bit for this genre. There are a few bands that we've already mentioned in the chat, like Afterbirth, which are doing this crazy sort of space prog brutal death metal.
Yeah, new album coming out.
Yep. Defeated Sanity, I think, is one that's been mentioned as well. I think that in terms of a modern brutal tech, they're a great band. But there's something simple to this recipe that they provided, and for as simplistic as it can be, they completely captivated, me as a listener on this record. I think it's unique in their catalog. May not have the same sort of cult following as Molested the Decapitated, but the sound of it, I think, is absolutely worth your time. So if you're someone who is looking to sort of dip your toes into this, so to speak, this is a great place to start.
Yeah, I mean, this style of death metal, I'm an old school guy, and there's an old school element to this band, obviously, but it's more of the brutal side, which, man, we started Worm Gear in 95, and every single demo tape that came into the PO box was like this. Not like this, but Suffocation ripoff, Cannibal Corpse ripoff. It was real easy to get burnout on that sound real quick, because that sound, it's got one voice, it's got one offering, it's technical, it's brutal. There you go. It's technical, it's brutal, it's misogynistic, it's got maybe pig squeals, maybe not pig squeals, but I mean, they're all kind of feeding from the same trough, which could be said about any genre, to be honest. It's just where you're at mentally, and with the stylistic, what stylistic traits you gravitate towards when wanting to listen to music. But this record for me is something special. This is like a special offering in the style. Is it the most technical? No, it's not a perplexing. It doesn't sound like a math problem when I'm listening to it. You listen to some people have been mentioning Archspire in the chat. Yeah, I watch Dean Lamb. I watch his YouTube channel. He's an amazing guitar player. From watching Dean Lamb and liking him and his wife, I watched some Archspire videos. It's insanely tech. I mean, their tagline is "Stay Tech," and it's like rap style, straight ahead barrage of vocals, and I get why people like it, because it's a spectacle. It's a music, to me, doesn't need to be a spectacle. I don't need people dressed up in hoods and masks and pig heads and blood and all that crap. Sell me on your sound, sell me on your songs. That's where I care. Does your music make me feel a certain way? Does your music take me outside of this mundane existence? Like Summoning, like the band Summoning, like black metal dungeon synth. That shit, Summoning is just otherworldly music to me. That's what but this album, for this style of music, this I said it in the description. It's like the end boss of brutal death metal for me. It's like, where does it go from here? More technical? Great. It's been done. The sound is perfect. It's a super sick, sinister, unique guitar tone. They have their own, at this point, they have their own sound. It took them 5 records to find their sound. It's this. If they don't achieve it on the next album, I might not be interested. So I don't have their debut. I've got the rest. I will go back and check out Unleash the Carnivore, and I've listened to Conceived in Sewage today. It's a letdown after spending a week with this record. It's a letdown. And I got a feeling anything in their past is going to be a letdown compared to this album. So it's a great record. I'm interested to hear where they go. I'm holding my breath for them, because I don't know if they can do it, but who knows? Who knows? And with that, that's it. Kellen is picking. Can you talk for a minute? Because I really have to use the potty. I'll be right back. So stretch it out and talk a lot. I'll be right back.
Okay. Okay. So we've spent a lot of time here. They would say this past year, I can't think of a single moment where we've talked about a new release on this. It's mostly older releases. So I actually wanted to talk about a new release. And then the second part of it is I was gone for a string of weeks. I will never live it down is the thrash fest that I neglected to show up for. And I was berated for my absence. So I wanted to talk about a thrash record. This band, I think, within the metal underground gets a lot of appreciation They don't have a whole lot to their catalog, but their debut release made a major impact, and they have a new record out this year. So I'm talking about Hellwitch, and the record entitled Annihilation Intercension was released here earlier, I want to say sometime in the spring. So June 3rd on Listenable Records. I think most people will recognize the band for their debut release, but nevertheless, it's kind of a classic death thrash band that has come out with a new release this year that we'll jump into, and I'll talk about a thrash record. So that way, if anyone wants to take shots at me for my absence with the thrash pieces, then I'll put it in the chat so people can check it out. But have either one of you heard this yet?
I
have
haven't
not,
heard
no.
it yet, but I know that they're from Florida. That's pretty much all I know, but I have not heard it.
Who are we doing?
The new release from Hellwitch.
Oh shit, they got a new one out.
Yep.
I used to trade video trade with Pat, the drummer, back in the day. The guy had an amazingly humongous video trading list. It was amazing. Nice guy. Annihilation Intercension Hellwitch. Cool. Yeah, the only thing I own by them is a demo.
Okay.
The Anthropophagy. No, I might have a CD actually too. I don't know. Oh, great. I haven't caught up with those guys in a while. It'd be good to hear what they got going.
I have not heard a lot of chat about it. So there you go. It's in the chat. People can check it out there.
Okay, awesome. Well, it was great again hanging with everybody. There's been a ton of new subscribers here the last week. If you're a new subscriber, hello, welcome. Definitely don't be a wallflower. The chat is a bunch of friendly, awesome people. Definitely join in with them. Thank you for joining us. Melanie, thanks for jumping in short notice.
Yeah, it was fun. Thanks for
A lot of
including
fun.
me.
Absolutely.
I was excited. I was like, what I woke up to was your message. And I was like, oh, hell yeah, I'm doing that.
Nice.
Oh, there's sometimes that you do it that you're like, oh, hell no. Why am I listening to this? Why did I listen to this crappy album 5 times this week, 6, 7 times this week?
You guys have talked about some albums on here that I've been like, I am not joining this stream because I'm going to be the most negative person in the chat because I did not like this album.
That's why we do this, because they can't. When everybody likes an album, it's usually gross, and it's you got to have discussion, and not everybody's going to like it. But
Except tonight, because it was gross.
Yeah, it was gross.
It was also true.
Melanie, what do you have coming up on your channel? I know you just put out a video today, which I haven't watched yet.
Yeah.
What's going on? What do you got going
on? I have a couple of I wouldn't say they're sponsored videos, but people have sent me some stuff to talk about. I don't have my PO box anymore, but I've been slowly letting people send me stuff.
Well, you got to let me know that new address when I go to send you something again. I'll I'll reach out to you.
I'm planning on opening another one because I want to get more promotion on my channel again and start promoting more distros and underground bands more and start be more of a focal point. So I have a couple of those videos coming. There's several albums that have come out these last 2 weeks that I really want to talk about on here, and I might make another video of albums I don't like because that was a nice view, nice views on that album, even though everybody hated me after that video. But yeah, I have a lot of stuff coming, a lot of reissues that I want to show off. People have been asking me 100 times about the Dismember box set and all this stuff. So people. Oh,
you bought the Dismember box set? TJ was trying to get that. He waited too long and it was gone.
I did not get it, but I might have somebody that's gonna sell it to me. So
nice.
Or at least do a trade. So nice. Yeah, I'm waiting on it. If not, they're also doing just the separate reissues as well. So I might end up getting a couple of those at least.
How about you, Kellen? What you got coming up on your channel? Everybody go check out Melanie Loves Death Metal. The link's in the description.
Probably the next thing I have planned, I ran into a little issue with my traditional heavy metal episode. So that's been delayed, but I do want to get together with Peter from the Metal Vault and Jeff. We'll get sort of the group back together that did the Bluthaus Nord deep dive. There's a new Bluthaus Nord record coming out the end of this month.
Cool.
And we'll probably get together and do an album review for that.
Awesome. And everybody, Jim runs Eihwaz Recordings. He's got a cool list of tapes and a few CDs and stuff. Link in the description. Go check that stuff out. Stuff like Marsh Dweller and I can't remember. You have to help me out with Vex. What are some other ones? I can't remember.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You can't remember ever either.
Well, I mean, the Adawantin tape's pretty good. And hold on, what is all my stuff? I got such a crap memory, man. Let's see, Pestifear, old Minnesota band, really, really awesome.
That was a good album.
They're like Dissection, in my opinion. Unwilling Flesh.
Andrew from High on Fire, or
from Iron Flame,
and Nachachwin's old school Swedish death metal project. Yep.
A Wagner, like a crusty death metal band from Spain. Just a lot of random stuff. Basically, if I like it and I can help them out and put out a tape or whatever, I do it. So it's just kind of like a personal little thing for me. Speaking of P.O. boxes, Marty, do you ever get anything from Iowa? I just realized I still use your P.O. box for my Iowa stuff. Have you got anything cool in there?
No.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I should probably do more.
I get a lot of returns, shit that undeliverable mail or mail that's been mutilated. That's what I get back there.
Mutilated mail.
Mutilated mail. All right, so check out Eihwaz. Links in the description. And for me, I got to say, Friday is a big day with Bindrune. We're finishing out our year of releasing stuff with the new Panopticon, The Rhyme of Memory. 2 LP set with a 12-page booklet. It's going up for pre-order. And 2 Excellensis records. Overtures of Uprising, which is a pure black metal record. It's really killer. And their second album, Hymns of Collapse, is going up, which is all folk/chamber music. Very acoustic record. Both of them are very deep personal records for different reasons. So 3 pre-orders are going up. All 3 records are being released in November, and a whole bunch of merch to go along with it. So definitely go check that out on Friday. It'll be dropping Thursday night at midnight. So Friday morning, hopefully. I think I have everything set up and ready to go. So all I have to do is turn it on and come spend some money. It helps. And thank you again for joining us. These shows are always fun. Friday we'll have a show. I don't know. We don't have a guest yet because it's tough getting people all the time, but we'll get it figured out and we'll be here for you folks. And check out all these fine folks in the description. Everybody in the chat, you rule. We will see you Friday. And cheers. Have a good one. What?
Marty's
Yes, please. Exactly. Oh man, they got me going on this one. Excited.